Good evening, class. My name is Dr. Pause. Because the doctors don't play.
Since you got your degree and you know every fucking thing.
Future Dr. Shaun Kwaku Brempong Rooks Jr. The full name, alright? And this, I'll talk about that later. We'll get to that later. So, on today's lesson, something that affects us in our everyday life, but
Not on my watch.
when people hear the word, they act like it was all a dream.
Whiskey sauce?
But it's real. It is real, and it is affecting us on a day-to-day basis. So, our lesson plan for today is Colonization 101. And I left my lesson notes at the house, so everything will be coming off the top of my brain. Colonization 101. To start this class off, I wonder who can tell me what exactly is colonization?
Quickly.
And so I asked, what do you think colonization was? How long do you think it lasted? And when did you think it ended? By the end of class, we'll see if your answers stay the same. To start this lesson off, I want to start with the basics. What is colonization? It's defined as the action and or process of settling among and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area. All right, let's write that down. Take out your notebooks. Write that down.
Write that down, write that down!
Write that down. Process settling among genus. That's an important word. We need to pay attention to that word. To the indigenous people of an area. The whole point of colonization is that bitches don't know how to mind their business. As we talk about these two main concentrations today, we're going to talk about how these bitches fucked up everything and how because of their fuck up, these nations have been impacted all the way from the 14th century to now. Take off your headphones and pay attention. As we continue this lesson, I would just like to state that the process of taking people's land has been a process that has been happening since the dawn of time. Because humans are greedy. Humans want power, humans want money, humans want fame and fortune. And because of that, they will always try to take if you're greedy.
I'm breaking in half because you look like a pig.
But the difference between now and then is that the colonization that happened between the turn of the 14th and 15th century really set forth the world that we live in today. People from different towns and different cities, whoever was the most big dog, whoever was the most powerful, would just go from town to town to town, all to absorb all of these territories. They either make them a part of their own, or they allow those territories to be sovereign, and they just place them under control of the HBIC who started taking everything. Many different tribes went to many different places to take land, to seize opportunity, and to gain fortune. The Asante Kingdom was one of the biggest kingdoms in West Africa at that time. The way it got that way is because through battle, through wars, territories were acquired. So the same that was going on over here was the same that was going on over here was the same that was going on over here. The process of taking somebody's land for greed has been here the whole time. But I need to emphasize that during this time, though land was being taken and being stolen, though people were being killed, People were taken as slaves or indentured servants, but their slavehood wasn't a product of the color of their skin being used against them. During that time, slaves still had rights. You were able to work your way out of slavery. You were able to pay your way out of slavery, because slavery did not equate to you being less than. It simply meant that your town or your city or your hood got taken over by the big dogs. And while the big dogs are here, you're going to be working for the big dogs. But slaves were able to work their way out or work their way up. And it was completely different than what we have now. Because what we have now and what we had was colonization and slavery that was based in race, which is a construction that was made so that racism can be justified. The hatred of racism allowed for people to believe that they were better than the people over here. Racism allowed for Europeans and European society to feel as if they were the ones who were on top. They were the supreme. That is the start of white supremacy. They decided to further their goal of colonization and decided to further their process of taking territory and land, not just within their borders, but outside of their borders. And that is where shit got tricky. Now, during this time, humans were not stagnant. People were creating, people were innovating, art was being made. Civilizations were rising. And because of that, agriculture, textile work, and resources were being traded all throughout the world. So people were hopping on ships and going places way before the colonization of the Americas and Africa. Africans were going to North America. They were looking at the indigenous Americans and trading with them. Europeans were coming to Africa. They were coming and seeing the Africans and trading with them. Ghana, which is about right here, is nicknamed the Gold Coast because the resource of gold is so abundant there. The Europeans were gagged. Gagged.
Why are you gagging?
And because of that, and because of the resources that Africa had, the Europeans were trading with the people on the West Coast and were trading with the people of the Gold Coast. But not only were resources, textiles, and agriculture being traded, but also it was human labor. There was British Post in the Gold Coast, but not just British. From the British, the Dutch, the Portuguese, and others, because Europe ran their nasty, dirty fingers through the continent. But before the 15th century, they were just regular trading posts. They were warehouses that stored agriculture. They were places where people set up markets in order to sell what they had. But during the 15th century, something in the evil European mind changed. And during that change, they decided to not trade anymore with the people of Africa. They decided that in order to get the resources from Africa, they were just going to come in and steal it.
Attenzione, pickpocket!
And because they had already set up posts and trustworthiness within African people, a lot of it started to expand. So trading posts became slave dungeons. Because once the demand for human labor became super popular, more people in Africa decided to produce that demand. We're hopping from place to territory, all trying to get more land, but they did not know each other. They were not brother and sister, they were strangers. In Africa, there are so many tribes, so many languages, so many ethnicities. And back during this time, it was plentiful. Once they took the human labor from the West Coast, they brought it all the way to the Americas, where the Americas were going through their own colonization process as well. The process in which indigenous Americans were being killed, raped, and slaughtered. Their land was being stolen and pillaged from. And while they were doing that, they were clearing the land in order to build the agricultural society that we had during that time. A society in which made the current United States of America billions of dollars. Colonization was in full effect. They continued to steal, kill, rape, and pillage for as long as they could. And during that time, slavery, specifically the enslavement of African people, was the most popular thing to do. Using humans as a labor force, using humans as a means to simply gain money through whatever conditions they had to. Which is why racism was created. And so they had to create a reason for society to hate upon one person so that their enslavement can be justified. And so that colonization could spread. And it did. Fast forward to our now modern age of the 20th century. Slavery became illegal, and technically that's not true.
You lying bitch.
Because the 13th Amendment still says that you can become a slave when you become a prisoner. But during that time, the United States was trying to build their chops up. You have to understand, the United States is a young bitch. The United States just got here like 200 years ago, officially calling itself the United States, compared to many other countries like China, like Russia, like the continent of Africa, who has been here for time and time and time again. They've already had an established country with an already established base of people who live there. The United States wanted to make a name for itself. The United States wanted to become a superpower. So, between the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s, that was when the United States was really trying to show their chops. After World War I, the United States was feeling themselves. The United States felt as if there was a powerful bitch, and they felt as if they could be the head bitch in charge. During World War II, they continued to bust out their chops. They continued to show the world what they can do by bombing, killing, and stealing. And the results of that is that the United States became the world power of the world. Because that's what happens when you do a lot of stealing and killing. All right? So, the colonization that happened during that time was just a little bit different than what we see now. Because back then they had trading posts that turned into places where the colonizer could hold their slaves and could come and could be on land that was not theirs. But we now show our strength, we now show our power, and we now show all the places that we have colonized by our presence in their country using military bases. In order for the United States to remain in their HBIC status, they had to show their power somehow. And the way they did that was by implementing United States bases all over the world in order to truly have a watchful eye on the places that they colonized. But there's also bases in Japan, also bases in Korea, also bases in the Middle East. Israel, the country that is currently committing a genocide, is one of the United States' main pet projects, as Israel is a form of neo-colonization. Neo-colonization? Let's break that down. The prefix means new. Neo-colonization took its form by military bases being formed and built all around the world. And in this way, you're not technically taking people's land and you're not technically killing them, but you are letting them know that you can and you will at any time by deploying your military base on their land. The colonization still continues to spread through proxies. Proxies are smaller countries that bigger countries use, have a military base at to show their power, But bigger countries use their proxies to go fight other smaller countries that are proxies for other bigger countries.
Smack them.
The fighting of those proxies is what is normally called proxy wars, in which one smaller country is fighting another smaller country, but ultimately those countries are being funded by bigger countries. And that is how neocolonization manifests itself today. Through proxy wars and through military bases, the United States and Western society has made it so that they will have power in every part of the world. Proxies are the reason that we're currently in the situation that we're in now, with the United States on the verge of war, because the proxy Israel has started popping off with hella bitches in the Middle East, including Iran, which is a bitch that I don't know why they fucked with. But I do, because they thought they were big dog, because they colonized the best friend, the United States, that helped them out. We currently in the United States use our tax dollars in order to fund Israel's military, to fund Israel's education, and to fund Israeli citizens' entire livelihood. All in order for the United States to remain in power in the Middle East through their proxy of Israel. And colonization has not ended. The United States is currently using the Democratic Republic of Congo as a proxy in Africa. The United States is using the Congo not only for their resources, but in order to have an eye on the countries of Africa, especially when so many of them are coming to the understanding that liberation does not come from looking west or east, but it comes from looking forward.
And that's on Kwame Nkrumah.
And in order to fight neocolonization, we're gonna have to understand what it is. We have to understand how it's being portrayed, and we have to understand that it affects us, that it is using us in order to spread. People's land are being destroyed and are being taken, simply using our tax dollars, because the people in power, not just Donald Trump, but the people that fund Donald Trump, they want more money, they want more power, and they want more resources. But that can only last for so long, and when it crumbles, you'll know why. Because colonization doesn't last long. It truly does just last for a moment. But what comes after that is the rebirth of a new system. And when that new system comes, we have to hope it's a progressive one. That's all I got, folks. That's all the time I have. Further yourselves on colonization. Further yourselves on how the United States uses countries all over the world in order to push United States values. I want you to look up countries and look up pictures of the flags that they have at their parks. Because every country I've been to outside the United States, for some odd fucking reason, I see a United States flag. But it's not odd. It's colonization. And it's neocolonization. It's the United States trying to show their power and trying to show that they're the boss. But they're not. And soon it will come to that realization once it all starts crumbling down. This was Colonization 101. Thank you for your time. See you in class.